I would probably not be the average student. I hope not. I went to 5 schools to get my undergraduate degree, and it's because I kept dropping out. I really enjoyed what I did, and I took it really seriously, and so I kept changing majors and then transferring to other schools that I thought did that. So I first started at a community college because, see, I wasn't a straight arrow student either. I worked in Hollywood without an education in TV and film production. And then I got to the level of line producer, producing content, right? Producing low budget film, producing a kid show. And I was at the point where I really had achieved everything I wanted to achieve career-wise. And I realized that since I didn't have a formal education, there was never going to be a chance for me to truly produce anything of value. Meaning, I never was going to write or have anything of value to say because I felt I didn't have an education. The best I could do would be to hire people that had, an understanding of history and understanding of politics. So I kind of went through an identity crisis in my mid-20s since I never went to school. And I decided to go back to school with the intention of jumping back into showbiz. And the longer I stayed in school, the more I enjoyed it. The more I realized that I like entertainment and I love the arts, but I don't like the business part of it. And so slowly I disengaged from what I used to do and kept getting asked to do stuff in academia. Like, started out as a TA and then was asked to teach after I did my comps. So I kind of got slowly pulled into this field, which I never set out to be a part of. And I really love it. I feel like I just actually talked to another colleague of mine, Warren Steele. We were just joking that sometimes it just doesn't feel like a job. Like, I'm able to teach the things that I think are meaningful and fun and then share it with students. So don't tell my employer that, because I don't want them to think that I shouldn't be getting paid. But I really love what I do, and it's a great privilege. It's one of the rare workplaces where you can create projects that are interesting and valuable to you, and undertake them, and then try to find a way to connect with other people that agree and feel the same way. Well, no. They weren't. My dad thought that my dad was a businessman, he was a CEO. So he thought that this is the place where you come and get through it as fast as possible. Just get through it as fast as possible to get the piece of paper. This is an annoyance that you encounter, and you need to get past this annoyance as quickly as possible. So I went in with that view. And then I became a lifer, student. I took classes year round. I went to school year round. I loved my classes, and it's because I had worked. Where it's a bit of a dictatorship in the workplace. It can be exciting to make money and to undertake projects and be a part of that, but it's a dictatorship. And it was great to come to school to it's like a sandbox, right? To be able to really engage with ideas in a way that's pretty safe, where no one's going to really slap you down for doing that. So I really got to school and liked it. And I started to very strongly disagree with my parents because they thought I was hiding out in school. The fact that I enjoyed my classes and wanted to take more of them, they would say, well, someday you're going to get out into the real world. And once I got into grad school, they thought I was just kind of trying to hide from the real world. And it really wasn't until I was about 4 years into teaching. And, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I got some awards, and that they started to see that it was something I enjoyed, it's something I was good at. And so it wasn't until then that they started to kind of get what I did, and it wasn't just hiding. And then I wasn't just being a complainer. I wasn't just being negative about the world or bringing them down, talking about politics all the time. I hope that's not other people's experience, but that was mine. And I have to say, it was a very sad time for about 10 years where I felt like I didn't connect with my parents, where I didn't feel that we had a connection over things that were really important to me. And that's probably somewhat common. And I would tell people, just stick with your heart. It'll all work out in the end. And if it doesn't, you'll probably meet other friends and other people's family members. And your girlfriend or boyfriend or partner's parents, maybe you'll get along with them, and it'll help to make up for the gap in your heart if you're not getting along with your own parents. But hopefully that won't happen. Well, okay, they came in phases. So one was just a childhood dream. Like, I love pop culture. I love movies. I love the arts, and I love music. And so those are the things that gave my life a lot of meaning. So I wanted to do those things. And so I went to school to learn how to do those things. And then once I started working in the field, I enjoyed it, but I really didn't like the business of the arts. I just personally didn't like the business of the arts. The arts to me were what kept me going when times were tough. So I have a different expectation from the arts. To me, it's almost therapeutic. It's like that thing that can turn a horrible situation into something bearable. My interest in social justice actually started while I was working, and most of it had to do with I worked for a lot of really large corporations that had enormous power, and they were very desirable companies to work for. But I started to see what I thought was kind of an abuse of that power, and I was a part of that, and I didn't feel good when that abuse was made visible to me. I felt, like I said, I was kind of a Pollyanna about media and the arts. I felt like it was a really wonderful thing, and to see people treated badly, or to see producers or network executives talk about the public, literally say, these idiots will watch anything. Can you believe we're putting this on the air? You know, to really talk about the public in a very disparaging, almost laughable way. You know, it didn't make me proud to be doing what I was doing. So I started to become more and more political just in the field. Like seeing, when I worked at Disney, they went through a phase where they decided that old people were expensive. So they needed to fire as many old people as possible because their pension, health, and welfare benefits are expensive. So they targeted people 60 and older. And you know, you can't just drive people out of their jobs because that's illegal. So what they did is they reclassified people's jobs. So I would go to work and I would see people who were my grandparents' age. And these were people who built Disney studios. I knew Walt's assistant. She was a secretary in '57 when they opened the theme park. Little gray-haired grandmother. She took me down and let me sit in Walt's chair, right? And I saw what they did to those people, and they reclassified them and made them, instead of executive assistants or executives, they became mail clerks and copy clerks. And I'd come into work and you'd see them crying in a corner or in the washroom. And I became really disgusted with the people that ran that company, the fact that they could take literally their own parents and cannibalize them in the name of streamlined profits, a company that was already making a lot of money. So, you know, I encountered a lot of things that I thought were unethical and unpleasant, and it really kind of changed the way I felt about the field. And then when I went back to school, I had those things that I had learned that I brought with me to school. So part of the value of a university education, I think, is you're made to encounter a lot of those things, critical thinking about a workplace, before you get out there, so that when you get out there, you're not like me, which, like, with big eyes and sad face, saying, well, this doesn't seem fair. Part of having a good, well-rounded education is, you know, you're an intelligent, well-rounded person who's going out into the world. And so I kind of did it backwards. Whoa, boy, that's a hard one to do. See, I have a privilege of teaching first-year students right out of high school. And I love that. I love it because the first-year students are still high school students until about February. And they don't know it. But they come back in February, and it's like they start to understand how this place works. It's impossible to figure out how this place works in 3 months, in 4 months. It's just not fair. There's too much to figure out. They come back in January and February, and they're usually exhausted and they're bitter. But they're starting to get it, and you can start to see the wheels turn, and it's like, I think I know what I might want to do next year, the classes I might pick, or I think I haven't made a mistake. Like, I think I've heard enough now that I can maybe figure out how I want to make my way through here. So I really love watching that transition, watching them show up in September and they're exhausted and hoarse and their bodies are painted purple from O week, and it's high school. And then you get through midterms and it's like, what the fuck is going on? I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't know how I was supposed to schedule my life. They don't understand yet, because how are you supposed to know in advance what you don't know? And then they come back in January and it's like, all right, I've gone through the ringer once. I know what's coming. I think I feel a small bit better at being able to plan how my life is going to go this term. But then in terms of material, I really like teaching in MPI, meeting the public interest. So showing documentaries that affect people, working with students who produce their own material, doing media-based projects where they produce things and have an effect on the world in a way that's meaningful to them, using media and using their skills to empower other people who don't feel empowered. That's probably one of my favorites. It doesn't feel like work. The fact that I get to come in every day and say, look what's in the news this morning, let's talk about it. Let's try and make some sense out of it. And let's see if there's a way that we could make you feel like you have more agency over your lives or help someone else. I mean, that doesn't feel like work. That's a great privilege. I was anxious, confused, worried, and killing myself to make the marks. And I did well, but I had to work really hard. And it's so impressive for me to see people who are just out of high school or really still young, who are able to come here and assume all this responsibility, right? And do as well as they do. I think that's an amazing thing. So for me, it was an exciting time, but it was pretty stressful too. If you're interested in it, then you should pursue it. And it doesn't matter what your parents or others think, you should pursue it. Stick with that. But at the same time, you should be open to change, to accidents, to the plan that you have in mind, not quite working out the way you thought. That's also okay. In fact, to be honest, now that I'm older, I learned that it's the accidents that actually, make life better. Because my little plan, if I had worked it out just like I wanted, I would be a much more boring person. I would be a much less interesting person. I would be a much less deep person. And part of what's great about coming to university, I think of like university, where you're forced to some degree in your first 2 years especially, to take courses that simply don't interest you in fields outside of your chosen area of concentration. And that's because that's where some of those wonderful accidents happen, where an idea from over here and an idea from over here collide. And what it does is it brings this, wonderful, happy accident together. So if I was to give advice, I would say, try to get your hands into everything you can. If you're interested in it, try it. Pick up, the phone, call professors that do things that you're interested in. Just look them up in the directory. We're paid to meet with you. So you could call anyone up and ask them, for career advice about their own lives. That's why we're here. And so this is a great sandbox, and I would encourage you to take full advantage of it. And also look at students in your program, or just students on campus who are doing things now that you might want to be doing in the future, and get to know them. Because as they move through life, they graduate, they move into the workplace, they'll bring you with them, and you'll go together. So, this is a good place for networking too. And I mean that, like mental networking in terms of growing yourself, in terms of an education, but also laying a groundwork for what you want to do career-wise.